Hey, what's good, people? It's CJ Williams for Culturalist Theory, and for this video, it's all about those Cash Money millionaires. We are ranking their albums from 1997 to 2003, from worst to first. Note, we chose 97 because that's when Juvenile's first album dropped and Cash Money began to bubble. We ended in 03 because that's when Juvenile's last album dropped and they begin to fade. So this list will not include the Carter series, which was released after 03, or any Young Money albums. Also, no greatest hits or EPs. Shout out to Magnolia Shorty. So be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a list. Grab a snack and get comfortable. Let's go. Number 25, the Undisputed Soundtrack. Don't worry, this one will be quick. The soundtrack to the boxing flick starring Ving Rhames, Wesley Snipes, and ironically Master P was released on Cash Money in 2002 and featured a revamped Cash Money roster. So of the original Hot Boys, only Wayne was featured, and he's only on 2 out of the 21 records. The rest was a mix of newly signed artists like Gilly, Buhangati, and R&B artist TQ. Nothing on here is memorable, although Trick Daddy has a joint called Let Me Ride, featuring a then unknown Miami rapper named Rick Ross. That's about it though. Number 24, Baby Birdman. How did Cash Money follow up the brick that was the Undisputed soundtrack? With the debut solo album from Baby, aka Birdman. Not really known for his lyrical talent, Baby's debut was filled with forgettable lines and entirely too many skits. There are only 2 solo songs, so it's likely he was trying to use this as a vehicle to show the new talent on the label, but that wasn't very effective either. There are 2 good records on the album. Scrap that, 2 great records. What Happened to That Boy, featuring the Clips, and Never Had Nothing, that flipped the Run DMC sample, both went hard. Everything else is a miss. Number 23, Mac 10, Banger Ball. Taking a page from No Limit when they signed Snoop Dogg, Cash Money signed Mac 10 in 2001 and dropped his one and only album on the label the same year. The album suffered from the same identity crisis as Snoop's No Limit debut. The balancing act of trying to keep the Westside Connection MC's Cali roots intact while incorporating the Cash Money sound was a task too hard to handle. The results were mixed at best, with the lead single Hate in Your Eyes, Dog About It with BG, Connected for Life with Cube and Dub C, and Do the Damn Thing as really the only records worth running back. Number 22, Big Timers, Hood Rich. If you had to put a timestamp on the beginning of the end for the original Cash Money, it would likely be the day Hood Rich by Big Timers came out. It was the first Big Timers album that wasn't exclusively produced by Manny Fresh, and not one Hot Boy was featured. This went somewhat unnoticed by fans at first because the lead single Still Fly was a banger and was even nominated for 2 Grammys. But once you hit play on the album, it's hard not to notice the changes in the below average records. It was clear the end was here. Number 21, Buhangati, Perfect Timing. Riding high off the success of the Fiesta remix, Chicago duo Buhangati parlayed that into a record deal with Cash Money, dropping a below average project with only a handful of highlights. Lyrically limited, Buhangati didn't do much to stand out, and many of the good records are because of someone else. Case in point, Wayne made the lead single Ain't It Man, Kels laced the hook on Dear Ghetto, and one of the best records is the intro Perfect Timing, and they're not even rapping on it. Instead, letting fellow Chicago MC Mickey kill it. Notably, the album does feature 2 beats from local Chi-Town producer Kanye West. Number 20, Juvenile, Juvie the Great. The last Cash Money album from original Hot Boy Juvenile, you could tell he had 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Juvie's albums up until this point, with one exception we'll get to in a moment, had been fire. By this time, Juvenile had learned the game and begun to boss up with his UTP record label. The singles were the hardest records, as In My Life, Bounce Back, and Slow Motion were bangers. The latter was originally a Soulja Slim song, but with Slim's untimely death, the song landed on Juvie's project. On a positive note though, the album was a commercial success as Juvie added a 3rd platinum plaque to his collection. Number 19, Hot Boys, Let 'Em Burn. By the time the 3rd Hot Boy album came out in 03, the group had disbanded and memories of the glory days had already begun to fade. But with a hard drive full of leftover records, Baby decided to drop the long-lost Let 'Em Burn album. With no push or promotion, the album fell under the radar for most. It's not as bad as many thought. There's actually a couple of solid joints. Introduction, Spin the Bend, and Down Here give throwback vibes of the good old days. Unfortunately, with the public knowing the real deal behind the scenes and the dated sound turned many off. There's even a line there by Turk where he's clearly about to say it's 1999 and they blank it out. With that being said, the album isn't that bad. Double back. Number 18, Turk, Young and Thuggin'. Turk was looked at by many as a forgotten hot boy. He wasn't as lyrically talented as Wayne, didn't have the catalog of Bg or the hit-making ability of Juvenile, therefore he would sometimes be overlooked on records. Well, he finally got his opportunity to shine on his solo debut, Young and Thuggin'. The album was about what you would expect from a Turk project. A few good records, but nothing top shelf. The single, It's In Me, was dope. He flexed his storytelling muscles on What Would You Do and Soldierette. Wanna Be Down and Trife Living were also solid. It would have been nice to see his growth had he been given the opportunity for a second album, but we never got it. Number 17, Juvenile, Project English. Remember that one Juvie album I referenced that didn't quite hit like the others? This would be the one. Project English isn't terrible. It's just that coming off his previous two, G Code and 400 Degrees, this was a major step down. With that being said, there's some heat on here. They Lied, In the Noya, and My Life, featuring the one good TQ appearance in the history of Cash Money, but it was the lead single that really slapped. Set It Off reused the classic UNLV Drag 'Em in the River and was easily the hardest song on the album. The remix with Wayne, Turk, and Baby was nice too. Would have loved to have heard Bg on there, but by then, he had already dipped from the label. Number 16, Big Timers, Big Money, Heavyweight. The very last Big Timers album wasn't near the glory days of the 90s albums, but it had several serviceable records. You know they kept a solid single, and This Is How We Do was straight, along with I'll Take You There, My Life, and No Love. The issue is neither Baby nor Manny are strong lyricists, and it's even more noticeable with this album than it ever was. Not to say they were ever top tier with the bars, but they had a distinct style and charm when it came to the game they were spitting. It just wasn't up to that high bar they set when they first came out. Still a slept-on project with records worth running back. Number 15, Lil Wayne, 500 Degrees. Wayne faced a ton of pressure when his Hot Boy brothers dipped from the label, forcing him to bear the weight of Cash Money solo. We'll give Wayne credit for taking on the challenge, even going as far as naming the album 500 Degrees, an obvious shot at Juvie's 400 Degrees. Unfortunately, the album didn't live up to the hype at all. There were a few records that were okay, like Gangsta Shit with Petey Pablo, Young and Blues, and FU, but the rest is underwhelming. Thankfully, Wayne didn't take this L lying down and would bounce back with his next album, The Carter One. After that, the rest was history. Number 14, the Baller Blocking Soundtrack. Following the blueprint laid by Master P with I'm Bout It, after a massive run in the late 90s, Baby decided to release a movie and accompanying soundtrack, Baller Blocking, in 2000. Inevitably, the comparisons to I'm Bout It are going to be there, and while it's not on that level, the soundtrack was still strong. The Cash Money Army was present and represented on bangers like the Wayne solo, Calling Me Killer, the Turk solo, Uptown, which is one of his better records, and Thugged Out by Bg is arguably the best song on the soundtrack. There's balance on the album too, with worthy contributions by non-Cash Money members, 8Ball and MJG on Ball and G's, and What You Gonna Do by Nas and his group Bravehearts, making Baller Blocking easily the best of the two Cash Money soundtracks. Number 13, Juvenile, Soldier Rags. While Soldier Rags was technically Juvie's second album, it represented many big firsts as well. It was his Cash Money Records debut, the first with the pen and pixel style throwback album cover, and the first with the signature Manny Fresh sound that will become so popular in the 90s. Being first isn't always best, as there are several projects that followed that mastered the sound and feel, but that doesn't mean that this didn't have heat. The singles Soldier Rags, Roll With 'Em, and Living in the Projects were tough. The album sold more than 200,000 out of the trunk in 1997, a sign of things to come, as this was the album that got the ball rolling on the tidal wave that was around the corner. Number 12, Bg Checkmate. The last album from Bg on Cash Money is his least likable work, which is crazy because it's a strong project. It's just his previous albums were that good. To My People, This End Die, and the eerily prophetic Press One all go hard. Had he kept the length of the album shorter, like his All On You series, this would have cracked the top 10. After the third or fourth skit and a few skippable songs, the album crawls to the finish line at 20 tracks. With that being said, there's more to like than not, and the album was a solid send-off to the baby gangster from Cash Money. Number 11, Lil Wayne, Lights Out. Wayne's second album wasn't the big leap we'd hoped for from his debut album, but it was still solid. Many records mirror some of The Block Is Hot in topic, but just aren't as strong. Also, his flow, while versatile, isn't clear at times, showing Weezy still has some growing to do. With that being said, Little One, Shine, Let's Go were all dope, providing marginal replay value for the future best rapper alive. Overlooked in Wayne's extensive catalog, Lights Out was a good project, especially coming from a teenager. Number 10, Big Timers, I Got That Work. Kicking Y2K off with a blast was the Big Timers with I Got That Work, and the album had bangers galore. Number 1, Stunner, Stuntastic, and Big Timers went super hard. But it was the lead single that really took off. You probably remember where you were when you first saw the now legendary Get Your Roll On video. Plus, Manny showed out behind the boards on this entire project. Hard Life, In Couldn't Know. Seriously, if it's been a minute since you've listened, run that Big Timers track back one more time. Beat is crazy. Fresh off of their Universal deal, the Cash Money Millionaires were flying sky high after a very successful late 90s run. So I Got That Work was the perfect project to kick off the new millennium. Number 9, Lil Wayne, The Block Is Hot. One of the last records to release in 1999 from Cash Money was the debut album from Lil Wayne. At the time, The Block Is Hot was a popular release as fans were waiting to get some solo material from the youngest hot boy. Now, whether you believe it holds up in present day is another story. As mentioned earlier, it's essentially a slightly better version of the follow-up Lights Out. The title track, The Block Is Hot, is Get Off the Corner. F the World is Grown Men, and Drop It Like It's Hot is Acting Ass. There's even a track called Lights Out, which is one of the better joints on the album. So it may not have aged as well as other projects in this top 10, but the fact still remains that when it dropped, it was a banger. Number 8, Juvenile, The G Code. When Cash Money said they were taking over for the 9-9 and the 2 Gs, they weren't lying, as all 4 projects in 1999 made our top 10. Juvenile's 4th album, G Code, was a worthy follow-up to the previously dropped 400 Degrees. While it may have been unrealistic to think he could top that, he gave a hell of an effort because G Code was tough. The title track, The Magnolia, Something Gotta Shake, and Guerrilla were standouts. Commercially, it performed well, selling more than 2 million records worldwide. Not quite the number 400 Degrees hit, and yes, it's unfair to compare the two, but it's the follow-up, so it's inevitable. With that being said, if you're a Juvie fan, thankfully, he didn't let you down. Number 7, Bg, It's All On You, Volume 1. By the time the first chapter of Bg's It's All On You series dropped in '97, Bg was sort of a rap veteran, already having 2 albums under his belt. But neither of those hit quite like this. The album is basically straight through. Get Your Shine On, In My City, and Silent Bg set the stage early for a very strong project. Bg's style and Manny Fresh's beats fit like a glove. Notably, this is the album with the first Hot Boys feature on the record, Ride Tonight. Except this version of the group had rapper Bulletproof instead of Juvenile. Deciphering between Volume 1 and Volume 2 is this close, with 1 or 2 records being the difference. More on that in a second. Number 6, Hot Boys, Guerrilla Warfare. Bg, Turk, Juvenile, and Lil Wayne collectively were known as the Hot Boys, and their sophomore effort, Guerrilla Warfare, was a problem when it dropped. They each brought something different to the table, and their styles meshed perfectly. With no clear-cut leader of the group, some say Bg's, others Juvenile, but either way, the chemistry was undeniable. The 4 of them in the studio with Manny Fresh handling all the production, they couldn't miss. No need for outside features either, as Cash Money rarely did records with other artists in the 90s, which turned out to be genius as their style became synonymous with them exclusively. Joints like Respect My Mind, Boys at War, and Get Out the Way all slapped. The latter contained the classic Wayne line, I'm running with your life in my hands, oops, I fumbled. If you didn't know he was special after that, then we don't know what to tell you. Then the solo records were hard too. Bg's Help and Lil Wayne's Clear the Set? Let us know in the comments who had the best solo song on Guerrilla Warfare, because we can't call it. Bg, It's All On You, Volume 2. The follow-up to Volume 1 did exactly what a follow-up should do, be an incremental step up from its predecessor in as many ways as possible. Dropping 5 months after Volume 1, Volume 2 has timeless Cash Money joints like Playin' With Sour, I'm Tryna, and arguably the hardest record out of both volumes, Clean Up Man. Short and straight to the point, one can only wonder how some of these other records would have sounded had they kept them at around 12 tracks. Catalog could have been even stronger. Number 4, Bg, Chopper City in the Ghetto. Damn, CJ, another Bg album in the top 10? Yes, the best Bg project, hands down, is Chopper City in the Ghetto. Joints like Cash Money is an Army, Ends in Trouble, and Made Man Went Crazy. The latter featuring a top 5 Baby verse, by the way. Whether solo or with features, this album had bangers for days. Not to mention the classic record Bling Bling was on this album. That song took off in ways I'm sure Bg couldn't have even imagined. I mean, the term is in the dictionary now. It's wild. Not only is this his best solo album, but you could say this is Manny Fresh's best produced album as well. Go back and listen to Thuggin' all the way through the end. If that isn't one of the hardest beats by Manny, we would love to know what is. Throw a couple of your favorite Manny Fresh beats in the comment section. And while we're at it, throw a hashtag free BG in there too. Now before we get to the top 3, leave a comment with your ranking of all 25 albums. Okay, you ain't gotta do that, I'm just playing, but give me at least your top 5. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button too for your boy. This is the largest ranking we've done yet, so a subscribe to support would be appreciated. All right, enough of that. Let's get back to the list. Number 3, Hot Boys, Get It How You Live. The album that many people could credit as the first time they heard of Cash Money Records is also one of their best. Get It How You Live from the Hot Boys made its way around Discman's Below the Mason-Dixon line in 1997, instantly becoming a down south hood classic. Songs like Dirty World, We on Fire, and Neighborhood Superstar were on repeat all fall after its October release. But it's 2 joints specifically that stood out. One listen to Shot Set It Off and the Wayne solo Block Burner, and you instantly became a fan. Actually, we're surprised no one has sampled either one of those classics. Let me know in the comments, should someone flip that or just leave it be? And if I'm missing something and somebody already has flipped it, let me know in the comments of that too. Number 2, Big Timers. How You Love That, Volume 1 and 2. We're packaging Volume 1 and 2 together because 2 is basically the deluxe edition of Volume 1. After Cash Money signed their deal with Universal, they re-released the album with a few new joints. Introducing a whole nother type of talk called Stuntin' to the Culture, How You Love That had bangers that rang out all 1998. Where do you even start? Millionaire Dream? Playboy, Cutlass Monte Carlos, and Regals? The sound was unlike anything we had heard, and although they came from the same place, they were sort of like the anti-No Limit. P was dope, but he didn't have anything that sounded like Big Ballin' or Tear It Up. Nothing. The sound was fresh, new, and the timing was perfect. Not known for their bars, this album has some of the most memorable Manny and Baby verses. This would have been a slam dunk for number 1 had it not been for this next one. Number 1, Juvenile, 400 Degrees. This should come as no surprise that this album is number 1, right? Not only is it Cash Money's highest selling album with more than 4 million records sold, but it's also the most complete body of work by the label. There are too many smashes on here. Follow Me Now, Rich Ends, Off Top, and Gon' Ride With Me for starters. Then there's the single High that even prompted Jay-Z to jump on the remix, and Back That Ass Up that became a staple on dance floors to this day. Juvenile took the label into outer space with this album, with some saying it also provided the nail in the No Limit coffin at the same time. Whether that's true or not, one thing is certain. Juvenile's 400 Degrees is a classic album that may be the best Cash Money album ever, Young Money included. That's it for today's ranking, guys. Let me know, did we get it right? Also, throw some suggestions on what label we should rank next. Again, I'm CJ Williams for Culturalist Theory. Follow your boy on IG at animal_brown, and I'll see you next list.